What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Total BS Podcast with my man Justin Spears. Justin, what's cracking, buddy?
So I have to address the elephant in the room here, Saul. And I'm not talking about this giant ass pimple on my nose, okay? Did you see that picture of Adele on Twitter?
I did not.
All Jamaicaned out at some concert festival.
Yes.
All you have to do is go Twitter search Adele. It is the funniest thing ever. Twitter is absolutely dragging her, and all I could say is, Adele, you're making me crazy.
Oh, there's your dad joke of the week, folks, and here we go.
Your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just part of the program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You're not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us. Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us.
Well, we have a lot of stuff to get into today, but first we have to make sure that we let you all know that our first ever Total BS Podcast Fantasy Football Draft, I wish I had the NFL theme song right now that I could play, will begin next Sunday. So 1 week from today, we will have our first ever Total BS Podcast Draft. If you want to get in, drop a message, drop a DM, like our page, whatever, comment somehow, some way, get a hold of Justin or myself, or comment on the Total BS Facebook page, YouTube page, or Twitter page, or Instagram page. We're everywhere, baby. And we will get you included. Obviously, we only have 10 spots. Half of them are already filled. They're going fast. So please, please, please let us know if you want to get into that. I also apologize for my camera. I will be looking down several times because the screen is down here, but my camera is up there. So I will do my very best to look at the camera, but most of the time it's just weird. I should have, you know what I should have done, Justin? I should have glued a picture of your face just right here around the camera, and your eyes were, maybe I could have made some eye holes where the camera lens is. So, and outside of that, obviously, we encourage you to subscribe and like our pages.
I was going to say, but
please.
You have to get in right now. Like Saul said, spots are limited. So we only have a few left. And the cool thing about us, we're the cool guys. We're the cool kids on the block. If you want to be a part of our fantasy league, please do it. It's going to be a great time. And I think NFL season will definitely be one to remember this year. So get in now, put it in the comments, reach out to us, and let us know. We'll get you on.
I mean, you can't go to the games. So, or at least in some places you can't go to the game. Some places you can, but there's really no other way to engage into fantasy football or football and enjoy the full experience if you're not going to go to the games or tailgate than to really play fantasy football now. Like, you might as well go all the way in. We haven't decided what the buy-in is going to be. It won't be crazy. I play in a high dollar league. It won't be like that, but hey, we're going to have some fun with it. That's the most important part of this. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have fun with you. We wanted to get to know you, and you will be part of our stream next Sunday. Again, this is a brilliant opportunity for you to get your face up there on the Twitterverse and in Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff. Come join the party. It'll be fun. Next Sunday night, Total BS Fantasy Football Draft right here live at 7 o'clock. Also, later on in the show, at the bottom of the hour, we will have Matt Babcock from Babcock Hoops. He is a former Arizona alum. I don't know if you knew that, Justin, but he also is an NFL draft analyst. He's going to school us on some of the NBA draft prospects. And he's an NBA draft analyst. He will be joining us at the bottom of the hour as well. So let's get to it, Justin. Obviously, a crazy week. I mean, unlike any other. And we're going to go ahead and start by the bubble because the Bucks are really what set the tone after the murder of Jacob Blake, and I'll call it a murder because not the murder. I'm sorry, the racial injustice the shooting of Jacob Blake. I'm sorry, I'm fumbling over my words right now, but he got shot 7 times in the back, and right in the backyard of the Milwaukee Bucks neighborhood, and so they protested by not showing up to their game on Wednesday, and after that, all hell broke loose.
The remember our last podcast? I kept calling it the Milwaukee Bucks.
Milwaukee, yeah.
Milwaukee. The Bucks are personally affected by racial injustice. They have a couple of players who have had incidents with police, including Sterling Brown, who was thrown to the ground and assaulted just for a simple parking violation. So this definitely hit home for the Milwaukee Bucks. And but the biggest story about racial injustice, remember, we keep asking how many more players are wearing this on their back, on their jerseys, how many more? And the reason why so many players were hesitant to go to the bubble in the first place was because they didn't want the issues to be pushed to the side.
Yep.
And these issues continue to happen. So the Bucks were like, listen, we got to stop playing basketball just for a little bit here. You know, with the George Floyd incident, also with Breonna Taylor, there was no basketball going on. So a lot of teams, a lot of NBA stars were able to focus on that. This happened in the middle of the bubble. So the Bucks said, listen, we got to stop all basketball and put a light on this. And we got to finally take a stand. You know, sports has always been used as an escape from the harsh reality that on in this country. But the thing about 2020 and how unique / crazy / horrible this year has been is that you just can't escape it. And I applaud these players for taking a stand. Now, I didn't agree with the Clippers and the Lakers really wanting to just end the entire season right then and there, because I really thought that would have eliminated their platform. But once again, the NBA is setting the tone for focusing on getting justice in America. And once the NBA did it, you saw Major League Baseball do it. You saw the WNBA did it. And finally, some teams in the NHL did it. This was a week that will go down in the history books in sports history. I just love what the NBA players did. And I couldn't applaud them more.
No, I totally agree. I think what they did is right. It's right. You know, far too many times, and if you go across social media, you'll see this time after time again, is people being upset that these players are using their platform, you know, and you can never make people happy, right, Justin? I mean, think about when players were deciding whether or not to go to the bubble, and people were trying to convince them that the bubble and being on TV every day was their biggest platform that they could use. And now people are complaining about the fact that they don't think these players should be using this platform to protest. And it's like, well, nothing's ever good enough. Nothing's ever good enough. And I think that's something that absolutely needs to go away, is this mindset that you as a consumer think that you can control and dictate when players and people, more importantly, can protest. If I went into work, okay, people protest all the time, all around the country, whether they get paid millions of dollars or not. You know, there's bus strikes, there are labor strikes all over the country. You know, the NBA players are no different. Now, this isn't a labor strike, but I think it's a little bit more important than a labor strike. Obviously, it's a lot more important because we're talking about human rights. Human rights. We're not talking about just black rights. We're talking about human rights across the board. And so I applaud the NBA for taking the stand that they did. I don't really care if it inconveniences your, daily routine and now you can't watch your favorite team play. Like, what's more important, a silly game or somebody getting shot in the back? I'm sorry. This demands our attention. And so I applaud the NBA. The NHL took 2 days off. MLS canceled some games. Like, every sport that is active right now, to some degree, participated in this boycott. And I applaud a lot of the teams that stood up for what they believe is right.
Saul, we've always heard the term, or recently, or last few years, shut up and dribble. Yeah. It was coined by Laura something. I don't even know her name.
Yeah, Laura Ingraham.
Laura Ingraham. That's her name.
Yeah.
The
more I hear it, the less I like it.
Let's just call her Laura What's-Her-Face.
There you go. That's better.
So Laura What's-Her-Face told LeBron to shut up and dribble, and that was just a few years ago, and yet these issues continue to happen. And these basketball players look at people who just say, oh, well, you just need to focus on this. You just need to do that. Where has that gotten them?
Yeah.
It is 2020. NBA players have been told, leave politics out of the sport. Why do you got to put politics in the sport? They've ignored it, and they try to make sports a safe haven for a long time. But these issues have just piled up, and it's just gotten too much. And these guys are fed up. A lot of people in this country are fed up. And I think a lot of these NBA players realize, when we talk about the platform, they're speaking on the behalf of millions of people who are hurt right now. And guys who look like me are allies. They are fed up right now. And so they join forces with their teammates. I am so proud to be a basketball fan. I am so proud to be an NBA fan right now. So
I mean, they've taken the lead. They've absolutely taken the lead in this issue. They have led from the front, basically from the get-go. After Kaepernick took a knee, after that, shortly thereafter, the NBA has essentially taken that torch and run with it and been at the front of all this. They are the trendsetters. Believe it, whether you believe it or not, the NBA is trendsetters, and they've always been more active when it comes to the civil rights, opportunities that sometimes exist, both good and bad. And so I applaud the NBA, and I applaud all the other sports for participating. But we'd be remiss Justin, I think you and I talked the other day, and we felt like this week was like a month. And 2020 has felt like a decade. It has just been the worst year of all time. And it didn't get any better come Thursday. So Wednesday we have the lockouts or the boycotts. And then Thursday night, obviously a man that's very close to you and I, and the rest of the basketball world, Mr. Lute Olson, Coach O is what they call him. He passed away at the age of 85. We all love him. And he had a great legacy. Justin, I know you being a part of the Tucson scene, I think we all saw this coming to a degree here soon. It still hurts when it actually comes to fruition. And, his legacy, $1.2 billion worth of NBA salaries so far is what he has been, is the amount of players that he's been responsible to put into the league. And it's unbelievable. Guys by the name of Gilbert Arenas and Mike Bibby and Richard Jefferson and Sean Elliott. The legacy goes on and on and on. And a tremendous, and more than anything else, he did it with aplomb and class. And he was a tremendous individual. And if you ever had a chance to meet him, you would know it, because it made a significant impact on your life. And Justin and I will talk about this as we close the show. Yeah. So stay tuned for that. We have a couple of things we want to share with you guys. But Justin, that news wasn't easy to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the worst days in Tucson history. It's definitely the worst sports day in Tucson history when Lute Olson passed away, because he meant so much to one city. Like, he is the most recognizable, he was the most beloved person ever to live in Tucson. Yeah. There wasn't one person who disliked Lute Olson. Not one person. And when you talk about class, Lute Olson was the definition of it. He never cussed. He was never a hothead. And one thing that I've gathered when I hear players talk about Coach and what he meant to them, it's not even about basketball. It's about getting ready for life. Our really good friend, Corey Williams, shared an incredible, such a beautiful video, which was a tribute to Coach O. And one of the things I thought really stuck with me was he said, "You taught us how to play by showing us how to live."
Yeah, absolutely.
And he got guys ready for life. And Saul, you mentioned the $1.2 billion. That's just playing in the NBA. Yes. That's not even the professional world. Harvey Mason, who is an award-winning music producer, who has music in films, has won a lot of accolades. He's very successful in the music business. Let's talk about coaching. Think about how many coaches have graced the NBA scene that have ties to Lute Olson. Some who have played under him and some who have coached under him. A lot of people forget Dunlap. You coached in the NBA for a little bit. You have
Mike
Steve
Budenholzer.
Kerr and
Mike Budenholzer. Yep.
And you have Steve Kerr in the Golden State Warriors dynasty. And it's just elevated to the NBA level. When you look at the Golden State Warriors in the heyday that they were in, the prime, when they were winning championships, that was Lute Olson product basketball right there.
Yeah.
And
sure.
he just meant so much to the basketball world. And I think it was so incredible to see the NBA honor Lute before every one of their games over the weekend.
Well, I mean, they should. They should. Anybody that has any type of an impact in the game in a positive manner, much like Lute Olson did, and dedicates, essentially their entire life to the sport of basketball, deserves to be recognized to that level for sure. Go ahead.
And so I will say this: Lute Olson is one of 5 head coaches to in all time
20 consecutive 20-win seasons.
20-win seasons. And if you go back and look at Arizona's schedules during those times, they weren't playing cupcakes in the scheduling like Michigan State, Texas, Maryland, Georgetown. Like they were playing the best of the best in college basketball during non-conference play. And I remember one season, I don't know if you remember this, Saul, didn't they play Michigan State in the middle of conference play? So you have UCLA, you used to have all these great Pac-10 teams, and then you just got, Michigan State coming to town one weekend.
Yeah, because it used to be,
and there weren't as many games then as there are now.
So back in the day, it used to be where the ASU week, because usually that was just a 1-game week, they would schedule a game that Saturday as well if they played on a Wednesday or vice versa. And so typically they would go across the country, see who else was playing their rival, and then try and schedule a team like that to play in a unique game. And so Lute Olson, to his credit, and I don't know what has changed. At least, obviously we follow the U of A a lot, but I don't know what has changed since Lute left and how difficult scheduling and the mindset coaches have in scheduling big time opponents. How much that has changed, but Lute Olson was not afraid to take on the best of the best. He took on Duke and Duke at home, took on North Carolina seemingly every other year, Michigan when the Fab Five was here. There were tons of games that this man was responsible for getting and building a program, because you don't build a program by playing a bunch of soft asses, period.
Yeah.
And I obviously you and I both know that, and we've seen the fruits of that lack of labor, in my opinion. But by and large, we're talking about a man who was responsible for a huge legacy, not only in Tucson but in the sport of basketball. But I digress if I don't get to this last point, and just kind of tapped off the week. But one Mr. Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. I mean, talk about out of nowhere. And, Justin, I'm 40 years old myself, and colon cancer is actually very, very close to my heart. So my sister got married back in 2012. She got married, and her husband was 24 at the time. And this gentleman, after the birth of their daughter in January of 2013, got diagnosed with colon cancer at the age of 25. 25 years old. And his name is Josh Skilling. Josh Skilling, he is a very close member of our family, or was, because he passed away at the age of 28 of colon cancer. And to make matters worse, when I had to go to see his funeral, or go to be with my sister for funeral arrangements, I got to meet Josh's dad again. I met him before, but he also was in the middle of stage 4 colon cancer, and he just passed away a year ago. And so in the span of about 3 years, my sister lost 2 close members of her family to colon cancer, and it's just so unexpected. It's just so unexpected. It's just so sad. And so when I heard the Chadwick Boseman story, I just, man, what else is 2020 going to give us, man?
Yeah, I had to read the headline about 4 to 5 different times to make sure that it was real. And at first, kind of going back to January when we found out Kobe died, you're just in this state of disbelief.
Yeah.
Like there's no way.
Yeah,
Please be wrong.
Yeah.
Like you really wish at that time that there was poor journalism and nobody fact checked and they got it completely wrong and you just wanted that article to be wrong. And it wasn't, because there was no TMZ breaking the story. We found out about Chadwick Boseman because somebody posted on Chadwick Boseman's Twitter and Instagram accounts. And then that's when you started seeing the headlines. And I was in such disbelief because when I heard colon cancer, I was like, since when? Yeah. He never made it public, or at least I don't recall him making it
kept it private. Yeah.
And he made Black Panther. He was also Jackie Robinson. He made so many incredible movies.
He passed away. He played Jackie Robinson and passed away on Jackie Robinson Day in Major League Baseball. That's just crazy, man. Just crazy.
Yeah. And when I heard that note, I was like, 2020, man. Seriously. And not only was he making movies and being a superhero, but he visited a lot of kids at children's hospitals.
Yep.
Because they looked up to him like he was a superhero. A kid looks at him and says, "Oh my gosh, that's Black Panther."
Yeah.
And going through colon cancer treatment, making all these movies and staying in top physical shape so you can play as a superhero, all while inspiring little kids.
And who knows if he had it at that time?
Right?
I mean, Josh had it for 4 years, stage 4 for 4 years, and he wasn't in the best of shape. I can only imagine somebody of Chadwick Boseman's, physical stature. He looked like he was in shape. He didn't look like he was, not in shape. You know what I mean? And so how long did he have this? Was this something that happened in the last couple months? Is it something that he's had for a couple of years? So many questions, which I'm sure will come out at some point, but I will say this too. It almost lends itself to I don't think professionalism isn't the right word, but the regalness of him, to die without bringing attention to himself. That's a unique trait. That just is.
And that's what we call a real life superhero. I know I'm not the only one that has said it, and a handful of people have said it on Twitter, but I just have to echo it. Chadwick Boseman was a real life superhero. Was never about himself, was always about others. And the roles that he played in movies, just absolutely incredible. Chadwick Boseman was on his way to being one of the best actors that we have seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just so unfortunate because when I say 2020, man, this year has taken away some incredible people from us.
It's been a hard year.
And I look at the photo of when Kobe Bryant won his Oscar for Dear Basketball and seeing the picture next to Chadwick Boseman. 43 and 41 years old, just taken away from us abruptly.
Yeah.
Fuck this year, man.
For real. I mean, that's the bumper sticker right there, man. Is just F this year. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
So rest in peace to Lute Olson, rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman, those two gentlemen,
and also Clifford Robinson, former Portland
Clifford Robinson yesterday. Yeah. I mean, Jesus. And he was only 45. I mean, I'm sorry. He was 53. My bad. He was 53. But still, that's fairly young, and, and especially for a former professional athlete, and so there's just a couple things that I got to say off of that. Number one, nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. Nobody. Nobody. Number two, do what you can today to make to make tomorrow a better day for everybody. For everybody. You know, we live in a very cynical world. We live in a world right now that is just ripe with strife and conflict and disagreements and distrust and conspiracy, and nobody trusts each other. At the end of the day, I need to know, and I hope people understand and know that when you meet me, I'm going to treat you for how you treat me. You know what I mean? What I'm going to give to you is the same thing I would expect in return. I won't ask it. I won't tell you to do it. That's the assumption. And I think as we move forward in this life, you know, thinking about that person next to you, your neighbor, your neighborhood, you know, the people you love, family, friends, and, you know, you got to take care of each other. Otherwise, you know, your time's going to come to an end, and you don't want to be left thinking, man, I wish I would have done X, Y, and Z. And that used to be something that I used to think about career-wise. No longer, you know, because whether I have a job or not, I can still treat people with the respect that they deserve, you know, and carry myself the proper way. And so that's just, you know, I think everybody needs to do that. And I think the examples that we just gave with Chadwick Boseman and Lute Olson are two prime examples of people that did that. They cared about people more than they cared about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I will.
I don't know about you, Saul, but no, I was going to say this year has really taught me just be generous, be kind. And I've always had a kind heart. You know that. Anybody that knows me knows that I will always treat you with the utmost respect. But
except on the basketball court.
I might call
Justin's
a
alter
travel.
ego comes out.
Yeah.
Justin definitely turns into
This
Kyle
is so
Lowry
true.
when we go play rec ball for sure. So, but hey, we have our special guest.
So my competitor fears not Michael Jordan, it's Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, it's definitely. We have our special guest in the waiting block right now, and so we'll go ahead and get to it. We're going to talk a little NBA draft with the one, the only, Mr. Matt Babcock. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. Justin, Matt, Justin, here we go. Matt, first of all, thanks for joining us. And before we get started, obviously we've kind of been talking, as you've probably heard, about one Mr. Lute Olson. You played for the Arizona program temporarily, or for a short period of time, I should say. What were your experiences with Lute, and anything that you would like to share in terms of what you will remember the most?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. I mean, I was planning on saying something about Lute, and I played on the team for a short time, and Lute was my coach. And more importantly to me, I grew up in Arizona, and I idolized Lute Olson and his program, and to have the opportunity to be a member of that team and have him be my coach, and even just spend a little bit of time with him, I'm so thankful for. I mean, just what a great man, and has done so much for the Arizona basketball program, and I think his legacy will carry on forever, because I mean he's created this Wildcat family that's really become like this strong fraternity. I mean we're all friends. I mean whether it's Andre Iguodala, Channing Frye, Sean Elliott. I mean we're we travel the world. We're all coaches, agents, different areas of basketball, and we say, hey, we played for Lute. We're family. And so I mean Lute created something special, and his grandson Matt Babcock was a teammate of mine. I talked to him a couple of days ago, and I just expressed to him just how bad I feel for his family, and of course we all knew this was coming. I mean, Lute was a little older and had some health problems, but you can never prepare to lose somebody like Lute, and just I certainly have a heavy heart. I know all of our Wildcat family does too.
For sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. And one of Lute's legacies was putting people in the NBA. So why don't we get to that?
Sure.
As an NBA draft analyst, first of all, I think the first question Justin and I both have is, how is COVID-19 going to change the way these teams really go through this process?
Yeah, I mean, for one, it's been a crazy long process that none of us have dealt with. Regardless of the angle you're taking at the draft. and we're all limited, and nobody's traveling much, if at all. And so for NBA teams specifically, they're limited to watching a lot of video, maybe watching too much video, and doing these Zoom calls where they're interviewing the kids, which is productive. But it only gives you so much information. So, I mean, the whole, traditional pre-draft process of bringing guys in, take them to dinner, watch them, do an individual workout or workout against other players. That's all off the table. So, I mean, it's very unique this year.
Usually the NCAA tournament really gets some guys moving up in the draft. Like one prime example, and sorry for all you Arizona basketball fans, but Wisconsin and Sam Decker. It seemed like Sam Decker shot his way up draft boards. But of course, there was no NCAA tournament.
It hasn't done anything since.
But there was no NCAA tournament. There haven't been any, in-person workouts. You just discussed about how lack of exposure will benefit, or I guess hurt a lot of players. But who do you think, out of any college basketball players, who do you think benefits just from the footage that we've seen in the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few different thoughts on that. I mean, I think one, missing March Madness. I mean, there's always a few guys that really rise. I mean, you see how guys perform, under the bright lights. I personally think Obi Toppin, who I currently have at number 1. I think if the whole world would have seen him on the big stage, I think a lot more people would be thinking the same way I do. And I actually do think there's a number of NBA people that think the same way I do. And so there's always going to be a number of guys like that would have had that opportunity to really rise, within the media, within the public, among NBA circles. And then as far as guys that are maybe benefiting from the lack of exposure, I don't know who that would be, but it's the guys that probably are overrated right now that would have maybe struggled in individual workouts with teams. And so, again, it's just, I think it's really interesting times. Everybody's having to kind of adapt. We'll just see how it turns out, I guess, right?
For sure. Well, speaking of, you mentioned Obi Toppin in your top 5. Why don't you give us your top 5 and why you rank these players? Because your top 5 is different than a lot of other people's, especially when you look at like the ESPNs and the other outlets, for sure.
Sure. So, I mean, with our mock draft that we do for Babcock Hoops, I really look at team needs. I mean, I put myself in the shoes of the decision maker of that team and make the best decision for that team, not just my big board of ranking players. So how I have it now with, I have Minnesota taking Obi Toppin. I don't necessarily have Obi as the clear-cut number 1 player in the draft, but I question the fit of the other top players with Minnesota. So I decided to go with Obi Toppin. James Wiseman from Memphis, I think he, at least from a media public standpoint, a little bit out of sight, out of mind. He only played 3 games at Memphis. This is a 7'1" guy that can move, that's skilled, that's a extremely smart kid. I think he's going to be able to step in and be really effective. And then Anthony Edwards from Georgia, a freshman, probably has the most upside in the draft. I watched him at the Maui Invitational drop 33 points against Michigan State in 1 half. He didn't do that consistently all year, but I saw with my own eyes, he's got the talent to be a star. He needs to click on some certain things and develop, but he's got upside. And then, of course, LaMelo Ball, the youngest Ball brother, 6'7" point guard. A lot of negative attention surrounding the Ball family, but the kid's got talent. I think he may be a little overhyped at this point, but hey, he's good. And then Denny Abdia from Israel, 6'9" point forward, versatile as heck. I think this group of guys are going to be good NBA players.
Bring up LaMelo Ball. What makes him different than Lonzo?
Again, I've got a few different thoughts on this. The one, I do think LaMelo is being a little overhyped. I mean, there's a lot of buzz that, hey, this guy should be the clear-cut number 1 pick in the draft. Granted, I see the upside. I see the talent. He's got great size. He's got the ball in a string. He's got a knack to make plays. But I think the downside with him is not being, brought to everybody's attention too much. He's not very athletic. He's not very physical. Does not care about the defensive end at all. Seems a little immature, a little bit entitled. Of course, we've all kind of been witnesses of what's gone on with that family, with the dad, and the expectations that have been set that I personally think have been unfair to Lonzo. What makes him different than Lonzo? I think he's a little bit more built like a scorer. I think he's less athletic. And so I don't see this being a deal where LaMelo is going to step into the league and be clear-cut better than his brother. I think he's got some things he needs to address. I think he's got a chance of being better, but let's see how it goes.
Power 5 conference-wise, there's a lot of prospects from each conference. If you had to pick one from each conference, let's start with the West Coast and go all the way to the East. With the Pac-12, who would it be?
Oh, Pac-12 is easy for me. Onyeka Okongwu from USC. This guy's a big-time player. I mean, he's you look at his size. He's 6'9", 245. He's more of a 5 than a power forward. But this guy's great. I mean, we've seen the success Bam Adebayo's had in Miami. He's kind of in that mold, a little bit like Al Jefferson, much more athletic. But I think this kid's going to be able to step in and be a major contributor off the bat and have a great career.
Big Ten?
Big Ten, probably the least amount of talent of the Power 5 conferences. But Jalen Smith from Maryland would probably be the guy I would peg. 6'10", long, shoots the ball from outside, and a terrific, rim protector.
Big 12?
Big 12, Tyrese Halliburton, 6'5", point guard. Their team didn't do that well this year at Iowa State, but just sort of a do-it-all, smart kid, stretches the floor. Even though he kind of shoots the ball like Bob Cousy, he knocks that thing down and just really knows how to play. I'm a little worried about his physical limitations, but just a sharp kid that knows how to play.
ACC.
I'd be torn between Patrick Williams and Devin Vassell, both from Florida State. But I'm going to go with Patrick Williams. He's just got so much upside. He's 6'8", 225. It really fits into the modern game of being a hybrid forward that kind of can do a little bit of everything, defend everybody, shoots the ball from outside, big-time athlete. He's not quite there yet, but if things click, he could be one of the better players in the draft.
And then finally, the SEC.
Anthony Edwards, he's got a lot of room for improvement. I think he needs to kind of grow up as a player. Doesn't make all the right decisions. Needs to kind of develop his motor to be a little bit more consistent. The talent's there though. The raw talent is off the hook. His physical tools are off the hook. He's probably got the best chance of being a star. Again, he needs to improve things, but Anthony Edwards for sure.
Does he scare you maybe in possibly – he reminds me a little bit of Stanley Johnson physically, just kind of that bulky kind of guard. He can do a little bit of everything, but can he – obviously he can score better than I think Stanley Johnson could in college without a doubt. But does that correlation mean anything?
I can see that. I think Anthony Edwards has got more raw talent than Stanley did at the same stage. But yeah, that's sort of the concern is all these things going to click? And, and the way I kind of look at it, upside guys is, okay, what do they need to get to where you want them to be? And the more things that kind of tally up, the more risk that comes with it. And so I do think there is a decent amount of risk with Anthony Edwards. I think he's going to be at least a good player. Is he going to be, maximize his potential? My confidence level isn't super high. Again, we got to see how it goes. But that's where I kind of went, me going with Obi Toppin with the fit for Minnesota. The risk with Anthony Edwards is what kind of held me back of we need to go all in with Anthony Edwards regardless of how he fits with this team. I'm not quite there with him. This draft is really, there's so much parity with the top. I think teams should, look at fit.
So you had Anthony Edwards going number 2, correct?
Three to Charlotte.
3. Okay. Why do you think he can fit in with the Charlotte Hornets?
He fits what they have. Devontae Graham from Kansas really took off this last year. They committed a bunch of money to Terry Rozier. This backcourt last year, they had 2 guys that are 6'1". And so, I think Anthony Edwards could be slotted in at the 2 guard. They took Miles Bridges, who's like a 3-4 a couple years ago. PJ Washington from last year is really, picking things up. They do need to address their 5. But he fits with what they're doing. He's got the most upside in the draft. So at 3, I personally think it's a no-brainer. It's worth the risk. And he'll at least be, a good player, if not great.
And before we let you go, obviously you mentioned Obi Toppin, but if you had a player to pick that wasn't in the Power 5 and maybe is in the Power 5 conference, but didn't get that much love this year, who's that sleeper pick that you just think, man, this guy could be like next level good?
I don't know if there's any surefire stars or anybody I put my neck on the line on that level. But a few guys I don't think are getting enough attention. Malachi Flynn from San Diego State. I think the kid's a stud. I think he's going to be a good NBA player. Jalen Harris from Nevada, another kid from the Mountain West. Let's see here. Elijah Hughes from Syracuse. Their team wasn't very good, and he's an upperclassman. I don't think he's getting the love. I think he deserves it. And then Cassius Stanley, who I think has been sort of hidden in plain sight at Duke. He was asked to fill a role, pretty much run the floor, hit open shots, and dunk the ball, which he did really well. And I think a lot of people were being critical on him of not being the creator, which I saw him do that in high school. So that's the group of guys that I think are a little bit underrated, at least as far as how I evaluate them.
So one last question.
Sure.
Matt, I know NBA draft, sometimes a few trades happen, and there isn't really a bona fide superstar in this year's draft, or one that is going to be number one. But do you envision someone making a trade?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's trades every draft, right? I mean, it's since I've been a little kid, I love the draft, and David Stern come up with we have a trade, right? It was it's like Christmas morning when you hear that, and I think there's gonna be a lot of trades this year. I think there's gonna be teams high in the lottery that are gonna look to make moves. I'm not sure how easy it's going to be. I know with the uncertainty of how next season's going to look and just the landscape of the economy and the NBA's own economy, I think teams are going to be very conservative financially, and so it may be harder to make moves than some teams would like to hope it would be. But I do think there's going to be a lot of active teams trying to make moves.
How likely is one of those teams going to be the Philadelphia 76ers?
Yeah. No, I think Philly for sure. I mean, of course, it seems like there's going to be quite a bit of turnover. They just fired Brett Brown. Philly is sort of a tough market as it is, and they've got a bunch of picks. They got a bunch of second-round picks. I don't see a world where they keep all those picks. I mean, I guess they could do some draft and stash. Guys, there's really not that great a group of those types of players this year, though. Philly, if I were to bet on it, I'd say they're trading it at least once.
Matt, before we let you go, tell us about Babcock Hoops and how it got started and what you guys are. I mean, you guys produce a lot of good content. So why don't you tell the people about you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. So Babcock Hoops, I guess a little backstory. So I was an agent for 10 years. Decided to get out of that business, wanted to get back closer to my roots. My family has all worked in basketball on the scouting side and the front office side for years, and got out of being an agent and wanted to scout, and started doing some media stuff, some writing for Sports Illustrated, and decided, I think I could put together, an infrastructure of my own. So I created Babcock Hoops. I brought on some former NBA scouts to assist me. And, so we do a number of different articles, all basketball related, all NBA related, but our main, focus is the NBA draft. And so you can find us on BabcockHoops.com. And then I also, I'm a contributor for CBS Sports HQ. I'm an NBA draft analyst for them. Then I'm also involved with a news site that just started actually last week, basketballnews.com, and it's a really great concept. So Alex Kennedy, who had been at HoopSite forever, just is the main guy there, and so there's several high level journalists, and they've got a number of former NBA players. We're all creating content. I'm providing draft coverage for them as well. So kind of all over the place, but check us out.
Hey, well, we appreciate you coming on and joining us today on the Total BS podcast. Thanks for the information. We definitely are going to use that. So best of luck to you for the rest of the year. And let's hope we have basketball in 2021 as well.
No, for sure. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right. That's Matt Babcock from BabcockHoops.com. And we thank him for joining us today. A lot of good information you just provided us, Justin. And, obviously, it's odd to have somebody come in and have such a depth of knowledge, and then on top of that, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he is a U of A guy. So to have him share his story about Lute Olson too, that was kind of a two birds in one stone kind of deal, huh?
Absolutely, and very insightful, a solid basketball mind. That definitely knows his stuff. So go check out all of his content, everything, all 6 sites that he's writing for. Go check it out. Absolutely.
Well, that, Justin, that was man.
That's a mood right there. That sound that you just made, that has been my mood all year long. You
know what? Let's change up the mood and take the edge off a little bit. How about we just start? Everybody's favorite segment of the week. Don't be that guy. Justin, start it off, buddy.
So I was scrolling through Twitter the other day. Rex Chapman, one of the best follows on Twitter. He's always got some good videos, some quality content. And he posted this video of a party in Georgia. Not sure why they're having this get-together during a global pandemic, but this gentleman wearing a Georgia sweater. I can't say if this is in Georgia, but apparently he likes the Bulldogs. This lady said, I bet you that you can't blow out the candle while wearing a mask, because he's looks like an anti-masker, says masks are useless. Well, they try out.
Oh, come on. Fucking do it. Do it. How'd that go for you, dumbass?
And then he takes off the mask with this high-pitched, squeaky voice and says, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter." No, it looks like you got.
Man, this, yeah, you got.
You got. And that right there, I want to send to every single one of my people, one of my friends that think that a mask isn't going to help anything. That right there shows you why masks are useful. So, in summary, wear a freaking mask.
That's it. Just wear a mask, man.
That's
please. I want to go see sports again in person. Please just wear a mask. If for nothing else, just do it for that. That's it. That's it. That's all I'm asking. So my don't be that guy. You know, obviously, Justin, school started a couple weeks ago, and there are millions of parents around the country that are teaching their kids from home. And I think there's been a much bigger appreciation for what teachers bring to the table. And this is my example of a father getting a little bit too frustrated. Oh, I guess I lost it. Hold on.
I can't
Sorry.
wait to see this. Say we're getting a view of Saul's desktop right now, which brings me to my next point. Saul. You bring up teachers. During a global pandemic, teachers are trying to corral 24 students in each class to stay focused, stay locked in on the assignments at hand. I see videos of some of these teachers, and I just don't know how they do it. And
okay, here we go, Justin. I got it.
Oh, hey, we got it.
Yeah, here we go. All right. So
yeah.
Stop asking. Oh my gosh, all the screensavers and pop-ups. Oh my gosh. Here we go.
So what is going on here?
Can you not hear this?
I cannot hear it.
Oh, okay. So he's like, Tom has 2 markers. And he gets 3 more. How many markers does he have? And the kid
5.
goes 2. He goes, count the markers. How many does he have? 1, 2. He's like, okay, 1, 2, 3. Get the hell out of here. You dumbass college kid. You don't know what the hell you're doing. It's just super frustrated. Oh my gosh.
How much am I paying for tuition? And you can't even do simple math.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah.
Have you had that moment, by the way, as a parent, where you're teaching them something simple and you're just like, no?
Actually, I actually very distinctly remember Alex, my oldest, when he was about 2 or 3 years old. I was sitting in the bed with him and I was reading him a goodnight story, and I wanted him to start to learn how to read. And so we were sounding out words, and I think, let's just say the word was like bat, right? And so I was like, all right, buh. And he was like, buh. And I was like, t. What does that say? He was like, bit. And I'm like, no, say it again. He's like, bit. No, not bit. Say it again. I was like, t. What does it say? And he would be like, bits. So after about an hour of doing this, he finally said bat. And I was like, yeah, you got it. And I think my enthusiasm scared the crap out of him, because he started immediately crying. Like, I think I just put this kid through a torture chamber of just trying to get this thing. And he was frustrated just like I was. But I was like, no, we're going to keep going until we get this right. And he was probably like, man, I just want this to be over with. And it didn't quite work out as well as I thought it was going to. So yes, frustration levels for parents right now.
That reminds
on a
me
whole
of
other level.
That reminds me of the movie Big Daddy when they're having the spelling competition and the little kid can get it right. But then Rob Schneider, the delivery guy, gets the word hippopotamus and he's just like, Hip anonymous. Oh, you get all the easy ones.
Oh man. So that's don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Hey, be patient with your kids and be patient with yourself. Because you're not going to have all the answers, but I guarantee you the answers are out there. And guess what, people? There's a thing called Google. So if you get stuck, just Google that shit and it'll help you out. I promise you it'll help. Before we wrap up today's show, thank you all for joining us again on another Total BS podcast. We do have Tell Me Something Good. And obviously, we have mentioned his name several times in this podcast so far. Mr. Matt Babcock had mentioned him as well, Lute Olson. He was very near and dear to our hearts. And so, Justin, I'm going to actually go first on this one because I also have another thing that I want to do. But this right here is a poster. I don't know if you guys can see it. Of the 1997 Arizona basketball team. And it's all signed. And that's the only national championship that the U of A had under Lute Olson. And it was... It's one of my prized possessions. It's my fiance's. And so now that's why I'm marrying her, of course, because I wanted the poster.
Sorry, Estella. I didn't know that was a part of the script.
But in all seriousness, that team was very special. I got the chance to play against a lot of members of that team, and Lute, the way he carried himself, really throughout the ups and downs, because as you know, they had a lot of first round exits when they were the number 2 or the number 3 seed. But they finally were able to overcome and win a national championship with a team that was very, very good and should have won back-to-back national championships. But that's for another day. So in honor of Lute, I love you. And I wish I had a chance to say that to your face. Because even though you weren't my coach, you definitely felt like it to me.
Lute Olson is a legend. And like I said at the beginning of this podcast,
Justin.
Estella heard that?
I heard that. Ooh, love you.
You might as well just stay in that room that you're in.
Stay in this room. I'm going to sleep on this little couch right here. I got it.
But Lute Olson was a huge part of my sports life. This year has taken away 2 figures off my personal sports Mount Rushmore, Kobe and now Lute Olson. Because growing up in Tucson, Arizona, Lute Olson gave us something to be proud of. Tucson was always known as the little guy compared to Phoenix. We never got a lot of love. But when it came to basketball, you best believe we were going to kick your ass every single year. And he made March Madness an event in Tucson, Arizona. And I wish he had more national championships because he was such a legendary head coach who had a lot of great teams. But seeing firsthand how much he impacted Tucson, I mean, legend doesn't even begin to describe how he was. And I actually have another personal memento of Lute Olson, his book that he wrote. I went up to him at a game after he was retired, and he signed my book. And the one thing that I always loved about Lute Olson, if you notice, any one of his autographs, is he always put the name, because he wanted to know your name so he can put it on the autograph. And me as a kid, that just meant the world to me. And that was the second time I actually had a personal interaction with Lute. The first time was when the Harlem Globetrotters came to Tucson, and Eugene Eggerson was on the team. And it was a big deal to see a former Wildcat come back to Tucson and play for the Globetrotters. and Lute Olson was in the tunnel area to the right of us. And my dad said, "Look, there's Lute standing with his then wife at the time." And we actually walked down, and my dad said, "Lute." And he looked over at us and walked over to us. And me being a little kid, 8 years old, I looked at Lute like he was a god. I don't even remember what the conversation was because I was just so starstruck on this guy because he was basketball in Tucson. And the last time I personally had a conversation with Lute was actually with you, Saul.
Yeah.
We were at the airport going to the NCAA tournament in San Jose, I believe. And that was
actually, we were going to LA
year.
That was we were going to UCLA USC.
That's what it was. Okay. And that was our last year as an undergrad. So it was a big year for U of A hoops. And just to have that, 3-minute conversation with him and his wife, it was so incredible. And even as you saw his health deteriorate over the years, you still saw that little twinkle in his eyes and that smile. It was so Hollywood and such a polarizing character. I love Lute Olson, man. Lute Olson, it has a huge impact on my life. He was the reason why I stayed up late so many nights to watch the Cats play. And he gave me and the rest of the Tucson community something to hang our hats on and made us something to be proud of.
Yeah,
may he rest in peace.
Yeah, for sure. I will say this as we send it off. As you know, I work for Fox Sports Arizona, and I love my job. And when I interviewed for the job, my very first interview was with Mr. Brett Hansen, who's our marketing, our senior marketing director, and had a phone interview with him. And then the next week was the Lute Olson statue unveiling. And you and I were there, and obviously I talked to a couple people here and there, whatever. And then I moseyed around, and I ran into Brett Hansen, who happened to be Lute's SID during that 97 run, and for I think until 2001, from like 95 to 2001. So he used to be the SID during that time. So he had a very close relationship with Lute. In addition to that, that was the first time I met Brett Hansen, but it's also the first time I ever met a man by the name of Todd Walsh. And Todd Walsh is a lead host on our network, does a tremendous job. And if you haven't had a chance to go to Fox Sports Arizona's page and take a look at the Lute Olson essay that he had put out, get your tissues, because it is beautiful. The way he really penned that was monumental. But that was the first time I ever met those two gentlemen. And I just thought it was fitting that I met them at that statue unveiling. And I don't know, when they left that day, I had a feeling like, man, I think I'm going to get this job. And I just feel like, you know what, that's,
wow. Maybe
it's the romantic in me or whatever, but it was Lute. It was Lute helped out with that. You know what I mean? And he just, in some kind of oddball way, that's just how I felt and how I took it. And it didn't hit me until he passed away. And I was like, wait a minute. Holy crap. I feel like I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. So for you, Mr. Lute Olson. Oh, come on, man. Oh, there we go. Here's to you, sir. Rest in peace.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I actually commented on Todd Walsh's video, and he messaged me back and saying the letter that he penned to Lute, that was 37 years in the making. All the emotions and the feelings that he had about Lute, it was all right there in that video. So yeah, definitely go check it out on Fox Sports Arizona. Lute Olson.
Absolutely.
Legend, mentor, icon. You will be sincerely missed. And
for sure,
the outpour of comments and memories, it's just remarkable. And I'm going to see you soon.
Well, not too soon now.
Oh, not soon. Not soon.
Jesus.
Not
Come
soon.
on now.
Not
I can't handle
soon.
2020 like that, Justin. Don't put me in this corner.
No way.
Come on
no
now,
way.
dog.
I don't think soon was the right
soon
word.
relative to like when the dinosaurs died. Sure, yeah, but like, but motherfucker, if you go this year, that's it. I'm done with 2020. Like, come on now. Don't put that mama
soon
voodoo juju shit out there. Come on now.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Anyway.
We all love Lute Olson, and may you rest in peace. And we definitely want to send our condolences to the Olson family and the rest of Wildcat Nation, because I know this is a community that's really hurting right now. So we send our best wishes and our condolences.
Tell them where they can find us, Justin.
Man, you know where to find us. Total BS Podcast. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to also subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a like on Facebook for the Sunday night stream. And also be sure to hit us up for fantasy football. Reach out to us. Let's on the list now, because it's going to be one hell of a season.
Let's go.
Have a great start to your week, everyone.
Absolutely. Hey, that's the end of this show. We'll see you when we see you. Peace.
Your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just part of the program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You're not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us. Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us.